After giving it a little bit of time, I decided to pick up a game in a series completely new to me, Monster Hunter World. When I first saw the footage of the game, I was ecstatic to jump into a completely new world and hunt some monsters. So, after playing it for about a week, did it live up to my expectations? Let's talk about that. Before we begin, let's take a look at the history of Monster Hunter for some context. The first Monster Hunter game was released for PS2 back in 2004. The gameplay centered around, well, hunting monsters in a loop in order to better your character. The game really took off in Japan through the PSP releases of Monster Hunter Freedom and Monster Hunter Freedom 2, due to the popularity of handheld consoles and the series' ad hoc multiplayer system that made its co-op features extremely popular there. However, the United States' preference on home consoles over portable devices and the game's learning curves led it to not being nearly as popular over there. However, attention picked up with the release of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate for the 3DS, which was a hit in both regions. To capitalize on the franchise's increasing popularity in the Western market, Capcom sat down to create a game that would not only entice its Japanese fanbase, but also its growing Western popularity, and thus Monster Hunter World was born. Monster Hunter World released on January 26, 2018 to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One with a promise for the PC release in mid to late 2018. The game puts you in the Fifth Fleet, cleverly named after the fifth entry to the series, with a group of hunters excited to explore the new world. During the voyage, the elder dragon Zora Magdaros capsizes your ship and you're forced to create your own way to the island. Once you arrive, the commander starts sending you on hunts to gather information about the fauna inhabiting the island as you try to figure out why the elder dragon actually appeared here. You're teamed up with Palico, Insect Glaive, and up to 3 other players to take on giant monsters while you explore what the new world has to offer. The core gameplay / compulsion loop of Monster Hunter World revolves around the hunts. Basically, this game goes like this. You start a quest, you fight a main monster, maybe some smaller ones, and then you win, your new quest opens up. On top of that, you can craft, forge armor and weapons, and create potions to prepare for the next quest. We'll talk more about the merits and drawbacks of this core loop later on and go into a little bit more detail. The first apparent thing about Monster Hunter World is its feature richness. From the upgrading to the crafting systems to even the beginning loadout, one thing is clear. This game has a lot of stuff. There's 49 total monsters for the players to fight, weapon and armor crafting and upgrading, Palico upgrades, Insect Glaive upgrades, potion making, crafting, tons of side quests, and enough content here to probably provide hundreds of hours worth of gameplay. If you're somebody that just loves to throw themselves into a single world to get absolutely lost in, you're going to really like this game. There's so much to do and so many things to learn that you're going to be able to play it regularly for months without getting everything done. The other thing I really have to commend this game for is its art style. The high fantasy vibe that they gave this world really stands out from other games, and the art is incredibly detailed. Capcom did a really good job making the new world actually feel like a new world with plenty of foliage and just general wilderness to it. Different ecosystems have this untouched dynamic to them, as if you were the first person to actually step foot on this island. The monsters all have their own unique looks and personal touch, which is great to see in an industry that would normally just create a handful of monsters and then offer slightly different reskins to fill up space. The main camp is also incredibly detailed and it's really fun to look at. In combination with the light attitude that this game holds despite being essentially trapped on an island filled with giant monsters, the world that they have set up for this game just feels right. The only thing holding back the art is the game's graphics. The one thing that really irritated me was the general blurriness and weird edges that cropped up at times, and also a couple lip sync issues that came up inside the cutscenes. Monster Hunter World is still miles ahead of the previous games, but it's not rivaling the games that pride themselves on visual fidelity. Even then, the art is still great and shines despite the number of pixels allotted, and the PC version will probably look great once it's maxed out. Now, even though there's a lot of stuff to do in Monster Hunter World, I still have to knock this game for its gameplay loop. The entire game revolves around these hunts, where you go out to the woods, track down a monster, and kill it for science. Each monster has its own personality and attack, which means that hunting each monster really requires a different approach, but the problem is that these hunts are the only gameplay within the game. Sometimes the setup will differ, but the end result is always carving a defeated monster while waiting to go back to camp. I don't mind that the game literally called Monster Hunter is about hunting monsters. I just wish there was more things outside of just hunting monsters to do. Luckily, there's enough crafting and other things to do between the hunts that keep things a little interesting, but in a lot of cases, the core gameplay just steps into a grind. Now, I'm somebody that spends a lot of time in games that revolve around doing essentially the same thing over and over again, but there needs to be something in there that makes the work worth it, or at least enough variation to keep me entertained. Multiplayer games really do this well because every match has different players that are going to do enough things differently to completely change how the match turns out, and doing well in the match is going to have a clear payoff. However, in Monster Hunter World, I didn't like the fact that I knew I was going to track a monster for a while, hit it a bunch of times with the same set of attacks, chase it through the world, and repeat the set of actions until the quest was over. Sure, every monster has been been crafted to have its own personality and set of unique attacks, and I applaud the design team for that, but the core gameplay loop itself is a major drawback in an otherwise cleverly designed game. It would have been nice to see a quest where you had to complete some story element that focused less on hunting monsters, or a quest where maybe you just had to defend somebody or something from monster ambushes, or just really anything that deviated from that norm. There was a mission in Wildspire Waste where you had to escort some researchers, but they conveniently ran away and hid in time for the game to switch back into the general Monster Hunter formula, fight one big boy and then loot it. The same thing happened in a later quest where you had to rescue another researcher who ended up running off with your handler to let you fight another big boy and loot it. Now, don't get me wrong, this type of gameplay has a clear benefit for players that enjoy it: replayability. I personally don't like repeating the same tasks for upgrade materials, but there are people out there that just love to slowly grind things out, and I respect that. There are players out there that are going to love going back to the same fights over and over again with different tactics to get what they needed from the monsters, and they're going to get completely lost in a different system that reward that. Also, there are plenty of people that are just going to enjoy their ability to say, hey, I did that quest a few days ago and had a really good fight in it, I'm going to go back and do it again just because I thought it was fun. Because there were actually some fun fights in the game. If you're somebody that finds that dynamic appealing, Monster Hunter World is probably the best game out there right now for you. However, if you're somebody that enjoys the linear roller coaster experience with dips and dives and plenty of drastic changes to keep you entertained, you might just not really like it. The other thing I have to criticize Monster Hunter World for is its lack of beginner-friendly features. There's so much stuff in the game and it's all basically open to you at the start. There's a crafting system, some sort of food system, a weapon upgrade system, and a lot of loot and materials that feed into them. There's a bunch of different weapons that open up to different play styles that take practice to hone, and all of this is thrown at you at the beginning of the game without any sort of lead up or guidance. Monster Hunter World basically goes, here's the system, it basically does this. Have fun. Now, I'm a believer that unless the game is incredibly specialized, there should be no outside resources required to actually play the game, and that there should be a system in place to constantly show off new dynamics and then use that foundation to build further. A well-designed game introduces players to new systems over time and makes sure that they play at a decent level through education and self-learning, but maybe requires sharing information with the others at higher levels. Basically, the game should lead players to a point where they thrive, but their own dedication and outside learning should teach them to dominate. Monster Hunter is really complicated, and it isn't something that you're going to fully understand in a few hours. There's a lot of different things that you have to sit down and kind of study until you figure it out. Playing through the game is going to lead a lot of questions, and unless you have someone or something with the right answers, it takes a lot of work to figure it out on your own. Just take the UI for example. Some of the stuff is really easy to figure out. You have a name at your top, the health bar under it, and the stamina under that. Not really hard to figure out. You have a list of combos on the side, which is nice, but still takes a little practice to figure out which the best ones are. Whatever. There's a list of items at the bottom and a quest tracker on the right side, which is pretty simple. Then there's a bunch of other stuff. What do the swords under your health and stamina mean? And why is the bottom one sometimes two? I'm pretty sure one means my weapon is getting dull, but what does sharpening it even really do? What's the symbol next to it? The Ghillie Mantle is out, but why is it displaying up there too? There's a little lightning bolt at the top, which probably means I got hit with Thunderblight, but is the clock next to it supposed to be how long it has until it wears off? I know that there's a camp and a monster on my mini-map, but what's the rest of the stuff? What does it mean when the eye on the monster is red? Why does my Palico have the same symbol? What are the different numbers and borders for? What are the symbols next to the map? Now, if you played the game before, it's most likely extremely straightforward, but to a new player, it's cluttered. There's some stuff that takes a little bit of playtime in order to derive their purpose, but there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't really make a lot of sense without context. Even though it's possible to look it up, if it's important enough to take up space on your main UI, it should already have been explained. Look at Skyrim, for example. Even though it's a much simpler game, it clearly marks things in a way that makes sense. Here's a mana bar that runs out when you use magic. Here's a health bar that changes when you take damage and heal. Here's a stamina bar that decreases when you run. Here's an enemy health bar. Here's a compass to show where you're headed and sometimes list stuff that's around you. Everything on the main HUD can be figured out with any sort of explanation because it's just that intuitive. I'm not saying Monster Hunter needs to be as simple as Skyrim. I'm saying that they should have either made a more clear UI or explained some of the extras at some point. It's completely fine to have a complex game. In most cases, it's a good thing. Complexity creates a learning curve within a game that drives people to get better at it, which drives up the amount of time players spend in it. A game that makes players want to improve and always provides new things to learn is a really good game. However, complex games should at least be accessible. Give players the tools that they need to succeed and some knowledge of how to use them, and punish them for poor decisions. However, create that punishment to challenge the players that need more practice or thought, not the players that are inadequately equipped with information. However, if you're the type of person that loves a challenge and is ready to delve into the unknown and has no problem being beaten down until you learn, you'll like Monster Hunter World a lot. If you're somebody that's played the game in the past and knows the systems already, you'll like Monster Hunter World even more. However, if you're somebody that's looking for a game that's easy to walk into without without prior experience and eventually get to the point of doing well by having a lax approach to the game, you might find the learning curve a little much. Overall, I think Monster Hunter World is a fantastic game for the niche it fills. The art style, while lacking the processing power on the consoles to meet its full potential, still shines despite some of the platform's drawbacks, and will probably look even better on high-end machines. The world that it presents is fully encompassing and provides a setting that's easy to get completely lost within, and is decorated with a lot of detail, with enough intricate parts to keep players wanting to find the best gear possible occupied for a long time. However, its appeal to the masses is hindered by its simple and repetitive game loop and its inattention to some of the needs of newcomers to the series. If you're a previous fan of the Monster Hunter series, the upgraded graphics and intricate world will make this game a series favorite. If you're a newcomer and looking for a game that you can spend hours upon hours on, and a game that constantly finds new ways to challenge you, you'll love this game. However, if you're a player that's looking for a more relaxed and casual experience and don't have the time to spend learning a bunch of complex features, then Monster Hunter World is probably not for you. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this video helped you a little bit. If it did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to see some more reviews, subscribe to my channel below. Otherwise, this is iMissTooMuch signing off. Peace.